watched the Red Pill documentary the other day. I hadn't seen it before. It's not because I didn't want to, it's just that, honestly, I knew I'd agree with it, and so I was like, well, I didn't realise that Warren Farrell was a feminist first.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Erin Pizzi and now Cassie J. It's very interesting that when the MRAs managed to get a feminist to listen, they're no longer a feminist. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Why are you here?
Because I've been invited several times and I've never been able to make it before.
Okay.
And I didn't want to not take it. I think that the men's rights movement has very legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a very, very powerful movement for the advocacy of women's power, not women's rights. There seem to be no particular problems with women's rights as far as I can see. Women's rights are women's security has always been a primary concern of civilization, generally. And it's only when women decide, or interest groups who claim to speak for women decide that they want something, that they get it by asking. It's not like, they just ask and they get it.
Sure.
And so I don't see how women's rights are under any kind of threat. If anything, I think they're being far too advantaged over men.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason that I think this is because I am a liberal. I'm a political liberal. And I do think that the institution should be neutral and treat people without favour in this regard. And that's clearly not the case, as we saw from Philip Davies' speech. But I'm sure that everyone here already knew these statistics. But it's good that he's put them out in a very sensible and compact way.
Yeah.
We can just see the clear problem. And so, I think that from a liberal perspective, there's nothing about the men's rights movement that a liberal couldn't support. And what I like most about the fact of the men's rights movement, and this is something I'm going to talk about in my talk tomorrow, is the fact it never became an ism.
Yeah.
It's not men's rightsism. There's no positive philosophical demands being made. It's actually the demands of liberalism being unfulfilled that are the main concerns. Why are we not being treated as we have been promised to have been treated?
Yeah.
And that's a very, very good question.
Yeah.
The answer is obviously the raw power of the feminist movement, which is not a liberal movement.
It is entirely to the credit of the men's rights movement that it never developed an ism. It never became meninism or manism or anything like that. The men's rights movement is not, as far as I can tell, a revolutionary movement. Instead, it seeks to fulfill the promises that have already been made and claim that which is being denied to mainly lower-class men, which is fair and equal treatment. It agrees with the premise that men and women should be treated as equals, with no distinction because of their gender. It seems to seek redress for the inequalities caused by an illiberal female supremacist movement, one that seeks to blame all ills on men and falsely claim all victimhood to women. It seems that the men's rights movement has a just cause. The facts are, as you will all know without having me reiterate them to you, in favour of those things that you are demanding. What I am saying here is that the things that you are doing, the changes for which you are asking, are fundamentally just.
One of the reasons I'm here is because it strikes me as kind of, if you're committed to equality of opportunity, then the arena of men's rights is one that needs to be talked up. So thank you for coming. In terms of kind of, there are a lot of parallels. I think it's good that, and it's interesting that the Honey Badgers have kind of opened this up a little bit in terms of kind of the whole culture war concept, because there are so many overlaps. There are a lot of kind of comparisons between the way people try and smear you, or the way they try and smear YouTubers or gamers or kind of whatever. Obviously, men's rights.
The MRA's always got it worse, and they got it first.
Yeah, the MRA's get it. So, just with that in mind, what advice would you give to people that experience smears?
before you start doing anything political, you've got to expect it, because your opponents are not here for an honest dialogue. They are here for group power. So it doesn't matter what you're arguing, because unless you're arguing in favour of what they want, which they're already doing, you're arguing against them, and therefore you are a threat to them. It's very much, if you're not with us, you're against us. And you will be smeared. Anything that you have said on social media that can be taken out of context will be taken out of context. Do not expect leniency from them. They are actually as brutal as they are able to be. And if they could do more, they would do. You will have to develop a very thick skin. You may get a few grey hairs in your beard. You'll lose a couple of inches of hairline. But if you stay the course, and if you do have a righteous cause that you're fighting for, then people will recognise that.
I guess with the fall of religion, there was like a morality vacuum that was taken up by intersectional feminism. And I found it strange that despite being atheists, there are men like you and, I dare say me, who are very principled. And I was wondering, how do you think you came to be that way? And do you feel there is a way to institutionalize that to, kind of spread that throughout society in a more balanced way?
No, I don't think it can be institutionalized, because I became the man I am because of my father. It wasn't because of a government institution, and I don't think that kind of moral fortitude can be inculcated through the intervention of government. And I think it's really only destroyed because of government, because of the subsidization of the destruction of the family. I think as a cultural imperative, we should be trying to get families to stay together. We should be trying to get men and women to live together and love each other and raise healthy, happy, well-adjusted children. I think that the government's meddling in this regard has been the downfall of our society, and I think that the longer we carry on pretending that the opposite is true, then the worse things are going to get.
And I think that there's a particular empathy towards the underdog in Western societies. We're very concerned about fairness, and I think that's to our credit. And it's obvious to see who holds the whip hand. It's obvious to see who's punching down. And when you have a very well-funded international feminist movement that's punching down against them, it's still quite a small, although this is the largest men's rights convention ever, which is fabulous. But when you have such a huge and well-connected, institutionalized, multi-million pound movement like feminism punching at such a small group of people, then you know that there's something not right here. You can see that this is whoever the men's rights activists are, you can tell they're not being given a fair shake. But I've yet to meet any men's rights activist that I would describe as a misogynist, a woman hater, a racist, a Nazi, or anything like that. They're all actually very nice, kind, liberal-minded people, often who have suffered because of the bias of the court system and the general society around them, and I think they deserve support. That's why I'm here.
This is a bit of a dark question, but do you think that there will ever come a time where the men's rights movement will become corrupt like a lot of modern feminism is? And if so, do you have any warnings or advice to prevent that?
I mean, anything can become corrupt, so it's always down to our own personal vigilance to make sure that something doesn't become corrupt. So I'm not going to say that there's no danger of it. Obviously there is. And if tomorrow the men's rights movement were to become incredibly well funded by various NGOs or international billionaires or whatever, then doubtless corruption would creep in. Not that that's likely to happen, obviously. But doubtless corruption would creep in. But I think it's not something that I would be inherently concerned about, because you are not promoting an ism. And I mentioned this in the speech because I think this is deeply important. Because I think that when people are doing something for the greater good, when they're fighting for an ism, when they're fighting for a status quo that they seek to see realized, rather than just addressing individual issues that are falling by the wayside from what is currently the establishment, the status quo, they give themselves moral license to do certain things because ultimately what they're doing is much better. What they're trying to achieve ameliorates any of the bad individual decisions that they make along the way. Philosophically, I don't see the men's rights movement falling into that trap because they're not an ism. So I'm not worried about that, because I don't think you'll get the funding that you need from a giant organization to become corrupt in a very swift way. And I don't think that you're in the same position as the feminists. So I'm not worried about that too much. But like I said, there is always a chance. So the only thing we can do is ever be vigilant.
Okay, so what are your plans for the next year?
I don't want to say, actually. Because,
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
Surprise.
Yeah, okay.
But I've got some stuff in the works that hopefully it'll be interesting and effervescent. And
Okay. Without sort of probing too much, are we likely to see you kind of moving into different areas, or are there particular passions you want to focus on?
I'll still be doing media, but I've got some things that are coming up that should be quite fun.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Some new ventures.
Brilliant. Okay. Look, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to quote something that everybody, well, not everybody, but the most common kind of quote I get under my comments is that I'm seriously criminally undersubscribed. So I'm going to completely shield myself here and ask if you could kind of say something.
The Glass Blind Spot is criminally undersubscribed, so you should subscribe now.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I promise not to do Dankula on it, but it's great. Thank you very much. Thank
No
you.
worries, man.
Appreciate
I think
it.
you're doing great work, honestly.
Thank you. No,
That's why I promoted it.
Can't you see it too? There's an elephant in the room.
The Glass Blind Spot is brought to you by you, because it's your views, your likes and your comments that keep this show on the road.